These are 5 board games that I've played more recently and what I thought of them. Alright everyone, welcome back to After Evenfall, a channel all about inspiring you to embark on adventures from home. My name is Bailey, and today we are going to go through 5 board games that I've played more recently, and I'm going to give my opinion on them and give you a little review and a rundown. If I sound like I'm out of breath, it's because I am. I feel like I can't breathe anymore at all. I am just, I'm winded. So if I start like breathing super heavy in the video at all, you know why. I'm tired anyway. So my first game that I have for you guys today is a game that I was sent by Snowdale Design, and that is Peacemaker's Horrors of War. So this game is based off of a very unique premise. Instead of playing against maybe another player or an opponent or another faction, you are actually working as an anthropomorphic mediator, trying to calm down both of the factions enough that they're willing to stop fighting without totally eradicating either faction off the board. So the breakdown of this is kind of interesting. There are 2 separate phases to each round. There is a round where the peacemakers do take their actions, and then there's also the second phase of the round where the armies that are on the board take their actions. And the armies are an AI feature. They are not played by any specific character or person on the board. This is a cooperative game. And it does also, by the way, play from 1 to 4 players. The playtime, they say, is around 60 to 120 minutes. The games that I've played have always been around that 60-minute mark. However, I have not played it at a higher player count than 2, so I hesitate to recommend it or to say anything about further player counts in the gameplay involved there. So each turn you will draw 4 cards, and you will have the ability to play all 4 of them. And those 4 cards are collective for everyone playing. So if it's 4 players playing the game, maybe everyone gets 1 card. If it's 3 players playing the game, someone's going to get 2, other people are going to get 1. The cards get divvied out between the players and then are each played by the players throughout their turns. The cards allow for certain different actions. Some of them will allow you to move your peacemaker. Some of them will give you the ability to fortify an army that's already existing on the board. There are some cards that allow you to hand that card that you've been given over to another player, which might benefit the whole entire game at some point. Maybe you don't need the card that you drew, but the other player did, so you can hand it over. And then there are also special actions listed at the bottom of the card. And those are individual and unique to every card, so I'm not going to go through all of those. And then there's also a feature that allows you to draw additional cards on some of them. So after everyone has played their cards out, and you also, by the way, don't have to play all 4 cards, but I only had a few rounds where I really carried them over. I didn't really feel the need to as often in the game. But after everyone has played their cards, then the warring factions will take their turn. So each of the warring factions has 2 stacks of cards on their specific sections of the board. You'll flip those and it will tell you who does what basically on the board. So it might say like your leader can do this, take this action. Or your soldier can move a space or can attack another player. And there's a certain range in which each player can attack. It depends on where they're located on the board, and it's unique to specific characters that are being played. But the determining factor as to which faction goes first is a little number on the top corner of the cards. Each stack of their cards will have a little number. It'll be like 7.6 or 4.1. And whichever of the 2 factions has the higher number count gets to go first. They will proceed to then fulfill those requirements that are on the card from left to right. And then after that phase is over, which is like the warring phase, you'll move right back into the peacemaker phase where everyone who's playing peacemakers will be able to take their turns. Now, the entire goal of the game is to lower these motivational tracks that are on the board for each army down to a certain area. There's like a green section of the board, and then there's a red section. And they all start at a certain number, and you're trying to get them lowered into the green section without going all the way to the little black flag at the very corner of it. Because the second that they hit that black flag, the game is over, you've lost the game, but if you can get both the armies down into that green track, you've then won the game. But that only applies after the warring phase. It doesn't apply after the peacemaker phase. So this is a really thoughtful game. The designer obviously took their time to really carefully anticipate and balance out the cause and effect of the cards It's very strategic, and it has a lot of very thinky elements to it. There are multiple scenarios that you can play, and the scenarios offer differences within themselves. So if you wanted to play the same scenario over and over again, you could add little variances to it that might add different elements to complicate the game or simplify your round that you're playing. There are a bunch of different factions that can be played on the board, and that also applies to the different scenarios that are played. I played, for instance, there are jaguars, there are lizards, there are a bunch of different little anthropomorphic characters. I was a little worried about the replayability when I first opened up the book. It's played on books, so that's why I keep saying that. But I was a little worried about the replayability when I originally got the game, but I am happy to say that there's a lot of replayability involved. There are so many different scenarios that you can really just play again if you wanted to. Now, the components and the artwork in this game are beautiful. If you have ever played the game Lands of Galzir, or there is also, I think they have Dale of Merchants is the other game that they produce, you know that they do a really good job on their art. And the components are really high tier. I love them. I love the little animal meeples. They're so fun to place out on the board. I actually really like the flipping board. I've heard a lot of people say that a lot of games are turning to notebooks now, and this has that notebook format to it. However, I love the art style on it. Each of the scenarios and the different boards that they produce that you can flip to are stunning. They are so beautiful, and I really love that about this game. So my only contention with the game, the only thing that I didn't really like, is that the peacemakers on their turn don't really have the ability to directly bring down the motivation track at all. All of that takes place over the warring section, and you're kind of guessing what they're going to do. Unless you have a card that allows you to flip and look at what the armies are going to do in advance, you really don't know where they're going to go or what they're going to do. And so sometimes you'll set it up thinking that you've really got it down, and this time you should get the motivational track down, and then cards get flipped, and there's no ability for that to even happen. That part of the game is a little bit difficult. I kind of wish that there was more of a direct ability for the peacemakers to have resource cards that would allow you to take motivational tracks down. I think otherwise you're kind of just waiting for, like, you take your turn and then you just kind of wait to see what happens, and you just hope that what you did was good enough. I want to say that, at the same time that I say that, though, it's not really like a luck-based game. I don't want it to come across as being luck-based. It's just there are certain things that happen that kind of make it difficult to anticipate. Sometimes you'll fortify a character and you'll think you've got it this time, and then that character, you flip their cards and they move one and they're out of the fortification zone and you've just blown it for them. And that part can be a little bit difficult. I do like that the game gets progressively more difficult to win as you go through the scenarios. I think that part of the game is really cool. I do think that what's nice about it is it can give campaign vibes. They do have like stories associated with their scenarios, but it's not a complete campaign game. You don't have to play through this scenario, then this one, then this one. You can play kind of sporadically however you want. That part's really cool about it as well. I do think that the game is very approachable. At first, a lot of times for me, games with maybe a little bit of narrative associated with them or with specific scenarios or campaign games can seem a little intimidating. This one was really easy to learn. I did not have a super difficult time. I would probably put it in the mid-weight category. It's not overly heavy. You could probably get it out with a group of people that you just sat down with and learn it all in one go together. I think that would be pretty easy. The only other thing I have to say is that if you are playing at 4 players, everyone only gets 1 card. That can kind of complicate the game. I think this game is really best at 1 to 2 players. I don't think that it does significantly better after that. I think it kind of just complicates things. I almost would recommend just playing 1 player. Maybe I'm hesitant to say that. 1 or 2 players. I think that would be the highest I would recommend playing this game at, even though it technically goes up to 4. I gave this game 3.5 stars. I'm not as into like campaign-ish. It's not campaign. I keep saying campaign, but it's not a campaign game. I'm not really interested as much in the scenario-based game, and I would like to see a little more interaction between my characters and the opposing characters. That would be my only critique that would bring that number down a little bit. I did think it was a fun game. I do enjoy it. I think that there are certain people that it would be fantastic for. It just wasn't totally for me, and that is Peacemaker's Horrors of War. All right, so my next game, to kind of put away the more strategic-based games and to move into a little bit more of a party game, my next game was sent to me by Rabble Games, and that is Rabble. So Rabble is a charades-based party game where players are divided into 2 teams and undergo a series of 3 rounds. So for the first round, each player will be dealt 20, or each team will be dealt 20 cards, and one player at a time from each team goes up and has 45 seconds to burn through as many cards as possible to get their team to guess as many of them as possible, while keeping them a hidden secret from their team. In a charades-like fashion, you are allowed to act, but you are also in the first round allowed to talk. You are just not allowed to say the words on the cards. You have to be a little more careful about that. But you are allowed to talk. You are allowed to make noises. And then in addition to that, the opposing team has cards that they've been dealt. They have 6 of them per round that they can give you that say things like, one player on your team, after guessing one correctly, has to shout out a dessert every round. Or every time you guess a card right. Or some of them will be like, after your team has guessed a card, you have to make an animal noise of some sort. And so that kind of can stump people a little bit. Now, this will continue on until all 20 cards are gone from one team's deck, and then that round is over and you move on to the next round. And a point goes to whichever team ran out of their cards first. So the next round then proceeds, and in the next round, the unique ability is that you are only allowed to say one word that applies to the card. So each team will still be given the 20 cards, and you just are not allowed to act, and you are not allowed to say anything that exceeds one word to describe the card. I will say this is probably the hardest round of the entire game. Yeah, it was really difficult for us. We ended up making house rules that you were allowed to say 5 words per card just because it got so difficult to guess. The round was really, really long with trying to guess just one word, so we cut the amount of cards that each team got down to 10 cards, just because we had been playing it already for a while by the time we got to the second round, because I guess we're not that good at guessing other people's things, but anyway. So this same round will proceed until all 20 cards are gone. You still have that same guessing, or you still have that same 6 cards that can be dealt out by the opposing players whenever they want on certain people's turns. And then everyone moves to the third round. Now in the third round, it is exclusively charades. You cannot talk, and you have to try to have them guess the word again. And it's the same premise, 20 cards, you try to burn through the cards, point goes to whichever team finishes first. The game itself is really fun. We had a blast playing it. We played it with our neighbors and their teenage kids, and it was so, so fun. We had some really, my neighbor's son he had pulled the card Gordon Ramsay, and it was the funniest thing. I don't know, it was so funny to just watch him, try to pretend to chop and to try to, get mad, but he wasn't allowed to say anything because it was the charades round. We just had a blast. It was so fun. Or I tried to get them to guess waterbed for so long. I thought I was doing a good job, and I just was not, I guess, because it took forever, and I definitely burned through my entire turn trying to get them to guess waterbed. But there are a bunch of different cards in here, which makes the replayability factor super high. And like I said, we had a great time. It was so, so fun to get together with everyone and to play it. It is very similar to charades. It's a super easy concept to introduce at parties because everyone kind of understands the premise already. However, I do think that 20 cards is a lot of cards per round. I think that 10 cards is really best. The only other nitpick I have is usually the team that went first burns through all their cards the fastest. I don't know what you could do to change that, though. It's just it's one of those games where it doesn't really matter who wins and loses. Everyone's just there for a good time, and so that's what makes it really enjoyable for us. Now, I gave this game 4.5 stars. I really liked it a lot. I thought it was a really fun party game, and that is Rabble. So my next game is one that I have been so excited about. I saw it for the first time a few months ago, and I missed the Kickstarter for it, but I was able to get it secondary via an extra website. So that is, oh man, this is going to be a second. I gotta bend all the way over. Anyway, that game is Harvest. Now, any components that you see in this video are the deluxe components. I did get the golden edition to the game, and I also got the playmats. So I got the Big Barn Kickstarter. So There are a lot of extras involved in here that you wouldn't get if you picked up this game at Target. However, it is available at Target, and if you are interested in getting the game, that's a good place to purchase it from right now. Now, this is, like I said, Harvest by Keymaster Games, and I have been so stoked for this game. It is so cozy, it is so cute, and I was so excited to get it out. I grew up in a farming community. I used to haul pipe all summer long, so it was really fun to kind of just, I don't know, I love farming games. I'm such a sucker for them. So in this is a worker placement, tile placement game where you are a farmer trying to grow your crops and harvest them and also clear your fields, add buildings to your board in order to score the most amount of points by the end of 4 rounds. So each round consists of 3 phases. The first phase is the sunrise phase, where first player will be determined and the income amount for each round will be, or for this round will be established. Then comes the day phase, where you will place out these little wheelbarrow tokens, or in my case, because I have the deluxe edition, there are actual meeples that go with the character that you've pulled that you will place out on the board to take your actions throughout the round. This phase in particular is really the main phase of the game. This is the phase where you're pulling off your board, adding stuff to the main board, you're getting more crops, you're clearing off your buildings. This is the phase, maybe you're upping your water track, or how much water's in your bucket track is what I meant, or how much water's in your bucket. This is really like the main phase of the game, and this is the major player interaction section of the game as well, where you might be blocking someone else by putting your character out on the board in a specific location. You can go to the market, you can tend your crops, you can water your crops, you can clear your field, or you can gain water, fertilizer, and a few other things, or money in order to really optimize your turn. Then you move to a wrap-up phase where all your all your wheelbarrows and stuff are returned, and then if you're playing a 1 to 2 player game, all of Gary's stuff on the board will also be returned to him. And I will get to Gary in a minute because I have stuff to say about him. So that's kind of the basic premise of the game. Worker placement, tile placement on your own board, and there's not really much more to say. I love this game. I really, really loved it. And I kind of thought in advance that I would because I'd read the instructions. I'd kind of understood the premise of the game. I love the farming style games. I loved this game. 5 stars for sure. I played this at 2 players though. And when you're playing at 2 players, like I said, 1 player, 2 players, you have to play with Gary. And Gary is an AI feature. So he is an additional character that blocks certain locations on the board, and he will take certain tiles during that first sunrise phase, and maybe you took the one that you really wanted, and that sucks, and that he might end up taking his turn before you during your round. I hate Gary with like a fiery burning passion. That cow always, and I mean cow literally, I don't mean that as like a slang term. He's a cow. He's the cow mayor. He's a politician or whatever. He is so annoying. He goes right where I want to go every single round, and I get so sick and tired of it. My mom somehow managed to like blissfully play the game without having to even worry about Gary. He never blocked her spots. He always blocked mine, and my mom would always block mine. And it was so obnoxious the entire game. I just wanted to win. I couldn't because I had freaking Gary there. So anyway, Gary the mayor, super annoying, but also super fun. He's definitely a necessity to your 1 to 2 player games. I don't know how you would play without him, but he is super annoying. But in like a fun way, like, I don't know. There's a little bit of asymmetry in the game. Your character can have some specific abilities. My favorite character that I have played is the beaver. He is awesome. You're supposed to like randomly draw your characters kind of at the beginning of the game, like you're divvied out 2 and then you pick one of the 2 to play. And I might make house rules that I always get the beaver because I really like my beaver. But at the same time, my mom played the wolf and she really liked the wolf. So I don't know, to each their own, I guess. It's because she didn't play the beaver, so she has no idea how good he is. There's also like a little bonus that you draw at the beginning of the game. So I was allowed to like upgrade my bucket every round for free once, and then the beaver allows you to take a building without having to pay for it, which is super nice. And so that, yeah, the beaver's the best. I love the components. I love these deluxeified little pieces that you pull out. It's got kind of a Tetris-y feel to it where the crops that you're growing on your field have to go in certain places and they're shaped certain ways, and you only have this grid that you can put them on. And I just love the components, the pumpkin components. Like, if you can get the deluxe meeples for this, the pumpkin ones are just beautiful. They have like all these swirling vines on them, and they're so, so cool. I also really liked the neoprene mats that came with this game. They were, I believe, the rubber-backed ones, and I like those so much better. So I've said this before on my channel. It's been a little bit, though, so I figured I'd say it again. Neoprene mats are either like the best thing or the worst thing for me. I either really love them or I really hate them, and it's all dependent on the backing of them. If you get a double-sided neoprene mat, a lot of times you'll end up with curling on the edges, and you can uncurl them, like you can roll them the other way. I just don't really feel like it does a super great job, and you kind of end up with bubbles on either end of your neoprene mat. However, with rubber, it has a little bit more of a weight to it, so it tends to hold the neoprene mat down a little bit better, and that's just my preference. I like the rubber-backed ones. I feel like they're sturdier too. They're less likely to get holes in them, and with me having kids and stuff, I always kind of worry about the durability of things that are hard to store in boxes. Granted, the neoprene mats for this game, if you do get them, they because they are a separate addition to the game, if you do get them, they come in a separate box, which is so nice for storing them, because I have neoprene mats like all rolled up, just sitting on the top of a thing in my laundry room, and I just feel like they get dirty, and I worry about them getting ruined. They're kind of hard to store, especially like the big, for instance, Root has some really big neoprene mats, and I can't get them to fit in drawers or anything very well, so they just kind of sit on top of my cabinet. I like that this one came with a box, but that's my little tangent on neoprene mats. I know that's kind of a little sidebar, and I know I've said that some of that before. It's just been a little bit since I've said it, so I felt like I needed to reiterate it. My only contention with this game is that I feel like I want one more round. Yeah. So in Castles of Burgundy, this is another kind of tangent. In Castles of Burgundy, you play 5 rounds, A, B, C, D, and E, right? And that last round, round E, it doesn't really, I feel like you could end the game at round D and it would be fine. But round E really offers you that extra, like, finishing out your board. It kind of gives you, like, a sense of completeness. In this game, it ends on round 4. It doesn't end on round 5. And I kind of wish that, I feel like if I had one more round, I would be able to do more and finish my game at a higher scoring, and I would feel a little bit more like the game was done. But at the same time, it's such a fun game that it doesn't bother me a ton. I just want to finish my farm. I want to get all my farming stuff out there, and then I want to cull it all, and I want to sell it all at the farmer's market, and then I want to score my points for all the hard work that I did. It sucks when you have all your stuff on your board and the round ends and you can't even score it, because you didn't sell it, or because Gary blocked you from being able to sell it. That makes me so... Okay, every single game, every single one, Gary blocked me from being able to sell my stuff last minute. Oh, biggest pet peeve. Anyway, it's still a super great game. I loved it, and that is Harvest by Keymaster Games. All right, my next game is one I was sent by Goliath Games, and I was sent this a while ago. It's taken me a little bit to get it to the table. We finally got it the other day, and I am so excited about how this game went. And that is, again, bending over. Fire Tower, again, by Goliath Games. So this is a last man standing area control game where you are trying to fend off the flames of a fire before they can reach your tower. The mechanics of this game are very, very simple. It is draw cards, play 1 card per round, fulfill the action, move on to the next round, play your card, fulfill the action, move on to the next round. Super, super basic as far as that goes. There are individual cards, and each of those cards will say things like, oh, build the fire in... it will tell you like a shape that you have to build it in, so maybe you have to build it in a 2x2 grid, or maybe you have to extend the fire north, or there are also cards that allow you to change the wind direction. When you play a fire card, the fire has to move in the direction that the wind is blowing. So if the direction of the wind is set to north, and maybe you're on like the northeast quadrant, and you play a fire card, you now have to put the fire down. You have to add your little fire gems to the north end of the flames that are already burning. And so that kind of adds a hard element to it, because you are trying to keep it away from you, but there's also a northwest quadrant, and your opponent might be in that northwest, or if you're playing it 4 players, your opponent is in the northwest quadrant. So maybe you try to put it over by them. It's all largely dependent on where the fire is already existing, and your options are kind of stuck with that as well. There are also cards that depict water on them, which work kind of as the opposite of the fire cards, where you will play this card and you will maybe be able to remove fire that are in a grid section of 2x2, or maybe in a line in a certain location. And then there are also cards that allow you to put up little barriers to keep the fire away from your fire tower. Fire cannot travel through those barriers, however, they can go around it. In the meantime, everyone else is trying to build up the fire, get it away from them, put it out on their end, push it toward you. And it is overall super, super easy to understand. Like, the basic game of this is so easy. I could play it with my 7-year-old. It's so fun. And we had a really good time playing it. We played it, me, my husband, and 2 of our friends. And it was such a hoot. It was so fun. It is very competitive. It's very mean. I almost think... So we played it 2 different ways. We played it 1 round with each of us playing individually. And like I said, it's last man standing. So if the fire burns to your tower, you're out of the game and the game just keeps going. So we played it at the 4 individual players. And I really liked that one a lot. And then we also played it on teams where it was girls against guys. And what's hard about that is if you eliminate 1 player, it's 2 players against 1, and 2 of them are going to guaranteed be on 1 team. So that kind of makes it not as fun. So we kind of made it so that if 1 member of the team gets eliminated, the game is over. That was our house rule, just because otherwise the game went on too long and the 1 player was just totally outbalanced by everyone else. This game is super approachable, again, for all ages, and I really had a fun time playing it. We all were laughing really hard because it's a really simple game. It's nothing like too crazy. It's not a game that I would get super interested in. It's very like group dependent, but it was a fun game. I gave it 3.5 stars, and that is Fire Tower. So my last game today is one that I have been super excited for. This game was on my, I think it was on my top 10 like wish list games, and I finally got it, and I've played it now, and that is 3 Ring Circus by DeVere. So in this game, you are a circle. In this game, you're a circle. No. In this game, you are a circus traveling around northeastern America, building up your circus to provide the best show. Throughout the game, you will be doing one of 2 things on your turn. You will either be adding acts to your circus, or you will be putting on shows in certain locations. Now, that's a super, super broken down explanation of the game. There's a lot of complex little pieces and moving components that go into it. For instance, there are movement rules depending on how many trains you have available on your player board. So you might not be able to go to more than a few towns if you have a lot of acts on your board. You might not be able to move very far. You might be able to only move 1 town over. You also cannot move where a circus has already been performed unless it's barring it being a big city. You can go to the big cities and like the medium city ones to get points there, but you can't go to other small towns that other people have placed on. There are little rules for each of the different types of towns that you go to. And overall, the sub rules can really make your game feel super combo-y if you play it right. So for instance, the rewards that you get from a small town are really dependent on what you have on your board when you go to the small town. There are big cities, and then there are larger towns, and then there are small towns. Small towns give you stuff according to a chart in the bottom corner of the board. Large towns give you things according to a little section that give you rewards based off of this little section, usually adjacent to larger towns. And then the big towns will usually give you a reward based off of a certain number act and where it's located on your board. I hope I said big cities there because I meant big cities. So when you play an act down onto your board, it slides into the space that it best fits, right? So if you have a 1 and a 6 on the top section of your board and you play a 3 card, it'll go between the 1 and the 6 if you play it on that row. If you play it on another row, it might go, maybe if you have an empty row, it would go all the way over to the right or the left side of the board. If you have another row with like a 12 and a 13, it would go all the way to the right side again. They stay in numerical sequence. This game is all about little nitpicky rules. It was kind of hard. It's a little bit complicated, and it was a little bit hard for my husband to pick up. I watched the video for it twice, so that made it a lot easier for me to grasp. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was one of the games that I have liked a lot better playing this year. I really love the components. I think that the board, I love the art style. It's got this like it's got this vintage style, but with a modern cartoon twist to it. And I think that's so, so fun. I love the colors on the board. However, my husband did point this out, and I do kind of feel the same. The board has a lot going on it, and it sometimes can be hard to really take into account everything unless you played the game a few times, just because it's really busy. And especially as you're putting out your little tents and Barnum is like the round tracker. Barnum and Bailey are moving their little circus around the board as well, and that adds some more elements that kind of complicate the look from your standpoint. It is really busy, but it's really cute. Like, I liked it a lot. So I really enjoyed this game. I gave this game 4 stars. My husband did not like this game. But at the same time, know that he's not into the Euro style games. This is mostly Euro style. It has a little bit of player interaction, but it's mostly Euro style. And he doesn't really like heavier weight Euro styles either. And I would put this on the heavier end of medium. It's definitely not a game that I would play with new people. It's not, I would have to play it with people who have played games quite a bit in order for them to totally grasp it. I think my mom would really enjoy this game as well, but it was totally like a game that I like. I really liked it's almost tableau building, and because you have your section out in front of you, that's kind of what you're doing. And I really enjoyed that element of it a lot. It's not quite as engine buildy as I was expecting it to be. I was kind of hoping that it would be more of like, hey, I played this card activates this card, activates this card, that activates this card. Something kind of similar to maybe Empires of the North. Yeah, Empires of the North. It's not really like that. Most of your cards really only provide rewards one time or a few repeating rewards, but they don't trigger other cards, if that makes sense. Like in most of my games, I like to receive benefits based off the cards that I've played, and I feel like a lot of these cards are mostly just placeholders to allow you to score later when you go to the smaller towns or the bigger cities or things like that. I really loved the theme overall. I thought it was so cute, so fun, and I enjoyed the gameplay quite a bit, and that is 3-Ring Circus. All right, so those are all the games that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. If you liked what you saw today, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notifications when we upload new content. And I hope to see you again soon here in the After Evenfall community.